Welcome again to the S.E.M podcast. Zach Hewlett here, and Jack Bryce will be here shortly. And tonight we are privileged to have the famous Allison Laird, now Allison Toone, if I said it right, hopefully.
Yeah,
Allison, how are you?
doing pretty well. I'm a little nervous, to be honest, but good.
It's not an uncommon thing for those that have been on the podcast in the past to come on and be a little nervous. But as Jack and I tend to remind people as we talk, this is the truth according to you. So what 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 you remember and
Yeah.
the thoughts that you share hopefully are provoking to someone listening to say, I remember that, but then they'll come on and tell their side of the story too. So it's
Yeah.
been really a unique experience for Jack and I to kind of merge all the different seasons of each individual's life into the mission and how we all kind of had a collective impact on the mission as a whole. So,
Yeah.
where are you calling us from tonight?
St. Louis. Well, outside of St. Louis, but St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Are you from
Yeah.
there originally, or just life has taken you there?
Yeah. No, life has just taken us here. It's kind of funny because it's one of those places that you never, I don't know, at least for my husband and I, we really didn't know anybody from St. Louis. And so when he got a job here for Boeing, we were kind of like, St. Louis, we've driven through St. Louis. That's where the arch is.
Hmm.
And I don't know anything else about St. Louis, and I don't know anyone from St. Louis. And um, but we discovered the thing is that because it really is an amazing place, like it's just super um, family friendly and just they anyway. We figure so. Here's the thing: it's so amazing. Nobody leaves, but nobody really wants to come either because you hear like the statistics of like St. Louis being super sketchy and like
Right.
highest crime rate. But the trick is that the way that they've marked things geographically, like St. Louis City is like right, like the very, couple miles downtown. And then
Hmm.
St. Louis County is like totally safe. So like nobody's going to hang out in the middle of, ghetto, any city. But that's what people think. Like that's like, there's murders everywhere in St. Louis, but it's actually really, really the opposite. It's just amazing. So yeah, we've loved it. We've been out here for 10 years and
Well, that's
counting.
cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, good. So, have you been listening to the podcast? I didn't ask you that before we started.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, just to remind you, the format, we'll talk pre-mission and your decision to serve, and then ultimately your reaction to getting your call to Scotland. Then we'll
Yeah.
jump over the mission, talk about life since being home. Then we'll go back through the mission. So,
Sure.
Allison, the floor is yours.
Well, okay. So this is the funny thing. Since my mission, I have been diagnosed with ADHD, which makes a whole lot of sense in my world, right? Like
Yeah.
I've discovered that I'm a little bit mouthy. Well, not discovered, but I understand now the reason why I'm a little bit mouthy. And so yeah, I can talk and talk and talk. So just tell me to shut up if I'm like getting all over the place. But
No way. No, not at all.
you'll be like, this is the first one that's like 3 hours. Wow.
You wouldn't beat the record, I can tell you if it was that long.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, so I guess a little bit of background for me on how I came to serve a mission. I think when I was a little girl, I wanted to serve a mission, in primary.
Mhm.
And then I like our family life just was hard. We just had hard things happening. I had a sister that died, and all the lots of mental health stuff in my family. So it just went by the wayside. I just didn't. It was kind of more like survival, in high school and middle school and all those things, which is maybe true for most of us. But
Yeah, for sure.
hello, hi Jack.
I
You just caught me at the beginning of my ramble, so there you go.
Carry on.
Okay. So, so yeah, I went to my freshman year at BYU and I failed out, bombed my BYU freshman year. Um, I think I even had like a partial scholarship or something like that. And I just was a hot mess. I read Harry Potter, to be honest. Like, I'm pretty sure I read Harry Potter for like all of my classes. It was ridiculous. So, learned a hard lesson that way. And then I kind of came away from my freshman year at BYU and I was like, what the heck? What am I going to do? Like, I'm just terrified that I'm going to screw up my freshman year or my next years. So I went to live with my uncle um, in Georgia because my parents had moved with the military to Germany.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so he's a career military guy, my dad.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, they had moved and I was like, well, I'm still here in the United States and I don't know what I'm going to do. So my uncle was kind enough to take me in, and living with him, it was just such a good experience for me. It really was the first time I had it like an active priesthood holder in my home. Um, and it just, he said to me one time, men are that they might have joy. And it was like one of those moments where I was like, I had heard that scripture before, but I just was like, yeah, you're right. It's like, I need to do something different with my life than, reading Harry Potter and being depressed or whatever, all those different things that you go through in your young adulthood and maybe after. But I was in the thick of it. And so my uncle suggested, maybe you should go, live with your family in Germany for a little while, try and figure things out. And I was on a train ride out with my parents in Germany, and my mom said something about a mission, and she's active. She's an active member and always has been, and really kind of like the rock, of our family,
Mhm.
in spiritual ways. My dad's awesome in other ways, but she mentioned something about a mission, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go on a mission. Um, but it was like, 21 still was 2 years away or something like that, at least a year and a half. So I stayed there in Germany and I was just working there on the air base in a daycare center, which doesn't pay very much, but I was saving up for my mission. And I just, I just waited until I was ready to go and put in my mission papers. And it was a really crazy experience because I struggled with so much, self doubt and a lot of anxiety, all these things that I didn't know, like the things you
Yeah.
don't get diagnosed with until like you're like, my kids are struggling, and then you're like, oh, that's what that was.
Right.
So so I ended up just having this experience that really kind of shook me up where I was like, oh my gosh, Heavenly Father's telling me that this is wrong. I'm not supposed to go. So I applied for my mission, put in my papers, and I didn't get I didn't get a mission call. And I mean, I was in Germany, so it was a little bit longer, but I was like, this has been like 2 months and I haven't gotten a mission call. And I
Wow.
talked to my bishop. I know, and I was like freaking out because I was like, what's going on? So I talked to my bishop and he was like, well, I know where you're going. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I talked to my stake president. He's like, I know where you're going. And I was like, well, what? So my mission papers or my mission call had gotten lost in the mail. And so I ended up no, actually, before I even told my
Wow.
family, I did end up having to tell my family in the bishop's office. Like one Sunday when the stake president was like, this is a little bit unorthodox, but like, let's just pull everybody into the bishop's office and you can just like announce it. So I didn't have like the big reading. And I was like, surely this is a sign that God is telling me I am not worthy to go on my mission. But
Jeez.
but the funny thing is, before I had even gotten my mission call or that experience of like being told, I had gotten a phone call from the mission coordinator or something,
Mhm.
um, to tell me about preparing for my visa. And I was like, I haven't gotten a mission call. And she says, like, well, you're going to Scotland. And it was so crazy because like I had somebody verbally tell me where I was going on my mission, without reading anything. And it was like this amazing, like, of course I'm going to Scotland. And then like, where is Scotland? And just all these feelings of like being nervous and like, but feeling excited and just, all of that stuff where I just thought like, this is crazy, but it makes so much sense. But I just don't, it's just hard to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
And then I had to like tell my parent. Well, first of all, I felt super guilty for knowing without my parents knowing. And I ended up telling my mom, like, Mom, I know where I'm going. This is what happened, but I can't tell you because I feel like I'm not supposed to say anything until I officially like get my papers. And maybe the Lord is going to change something and like be like, no, you're actually going to St. Louis or something, or something like that. But um, so it was so crazy to see how Satan really, like, I knew that I needed to go and I wanted to go, but it was just, he just knows how to like pull you down, like getting right in there from the very beginning. Um, so anyway, I ended up going on my mission and it was great. But
And do
yeah,
you remember timeline wise when you entered the MTC?
yeah, I was there July 2003, July
Okay.
9th, 2003, and then I came home January 2005.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That means that you were probably in the mission home. Oh, I guess you left in just before I got there. I got there in February. So, but I was at the MTC in January of '05. So
Oh,
we
fun.
just missed each other.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
you were coming in to fill the gaps that I left.
I suppose. I mean, I don't think you left many gaps. There weren't many to fill, Allison. I can tell you
Oh,
that.
well, thank you. Thanks.
All right. So take us to January of 2005. Tell us about what life's been like since then and what you've been up to.
Well, so when I came home from my mission, I remember driving home, with my mom. They'd moved to South Carolina by this point while I was on my mission. So I was coming home to like, I don't know who any of these people are. It was very anticlimactic, like, oh, they apparently have another daughter, like, hello everyone. So I came home and I remember driving, an hour and a half back home from the stake center and just thinking, what am I going to do? Because I'd failed out with my freshman year at BYU and hadn't gone back. And so here I am off of my mission, 20. How old are you when you come off as a sister? 22 or 20, I
Hmm.
don't remember. I think I might have been close to 23. Maybe I was even 23. But definitely, like that's when all the sisters that I had gone my freshman year were like graduating, they were married, all these different things. And so it was just this feeling of like, I loved my mission. And now what? I'm like starting 4 years behind. So I went back to BYU and Scotland really formed so much of, my adult life since then. I went to, got a degree in social work because of, all of the social work stuff that just anyway, but missions and um
Dealing with people's
yeah, right.
issues and problems as a missionary, kind of persuaded you a little bit.
Oh, it so did. It was so
Oh,
crazy
man.
because just all of the times that you go to teach somebody and you're like, did you read anything? And they're like, well, no, I didn't. And I'm like, why didn't you read anything? And I think I just had this aha moment of just the spiritual connection between like, if you're not willing to put in work for something, you're not going to get any spiritual growth, right?
Uh,
And so it just became like my mission in life. Like I am going to teach people to put work into things, and that's really kind of where I got into social work. But
wow, that's cool.
so yeah, it was cool. But I studied there and graduated in 2008. And so I started in 2000, right? So 2008 is when I'm finally graduating. I am like this. I am the epitome of like the late bloomer. I will tell you what. Um, so I ended up being out at BYU when my husband was there, and my mom and dad had since moved to Pennsylvania. Keeping track of all this, right? They
Hmm.
since moved to Pennsylvania, and my mom calls me and she says, "There's my younger sister's piano teacher in the ward, and they just had a son come home from a mission." And I was like, "Okay, I'm now 27, or at the time I was like 26 or something, 25, and he's just fresh off of his mission. He's 21." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I've already been branded as like the old maid. There's no way I'm going to put myself in the line of fire to feel like an old maid again." So I was like, "No, no, no, that's just too old, mom." So it was my husband, and we didn't meet each other until a year later when I graduated and I went to live in Pennsylvania. And it was just so easy to know that we were supposed to be together. So I was 28. He's a little bit younger than I am, so he was 23. So I was a cradle robber, no less. So late bloomer, cradle robber, like ADHD, like all the. I'm just like a hot mess over here. But and I'm getting embarrassed because I'm like sharing all this. This is why I wore a turtleneck. Um,
No embarrassment,
any
Allison. Come on, you're fine.
we'll just share all the stuff. But so we've been married since 2009, and we have, like I said, we moved back to Utah so he could finish his degree at BYU, and then he got a job at Boeing in St. Louis. And we have 4 kids. Our oldest is 12, and then we have a 10-year-old and an 8.5-year-old son. So 2 girls, a boy, and then a 7-year-old daughter, 7.5-year-old daughter. So we're homeschooling, which is pretty much my full-time job right now. And we started a business a couple years ago during COVID. We live on a farm, so um, because all of my kids have ADHD, so sometimes you have to just like let them run and get out
Mm,
their steam, right?
yeah.
So we moved to a farm a few years, 2018, and we ended up starting kind of farm classes during COVID, just kind of let kids be kids, and that turned out really well, and we loved it. But this past year, we just got hit with diagnosis after diagnosis after diagnosis of just various things, and so right now we're trying to figure out lupus for me, which
Wow.
just makes me super tired. And so we kind of shut down the business side of things, and we're just working on figuring that out. And our kids all got diagnosed with celiac disease, believe it or not, like 4 out of 4. So we're just like,
Holy cow.
it's just insane. But it's not been a bad journey. It's just been, different. And that's like the story of my life. I feel like it's just, nothing ever ends up being the way that you expect it to be, and just kind of roll with the punches, and as we all learn to do, I guess.
Yeah, I think
So
a lot of people can relate to that. It's just life comes at you,
it does.
but you roll with it.
Yeah.
So you guys don't grow wheat on your farm, right?
No. No.
Not
We
anymore, anyway.
no, we do not. And I should say it's like a 7-acre like homestead. Don't think like
Oh, okay.
it's not like, anything, no ranch. I'm not like, who's that lady in Walmart, the redheaded lady?
Pioneer
Whatever.
woman.
Pioneer woman. I am not Pioneer woman. No. We are like messy kitchen, like, yeah. The antithesis, just like real life,
Yeah,
we have
it's
animals.
it's it's lived in. It's not a model home, right?
Yes. No.
Good for you. That's so fun.
So far from it. But
And
anyway.
huge props to you for being your kid's teacher. I'm sure that that's been a unique challenge to you beyond everything else that you're doing. So we
Yeah.
we salute you for that. That's a big deal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a joy though. It really is. It's also hard, but it is a joy.
That's wonderful. Well, Allison, take us back now through. You can start at the MTC. You can start at the
Sure.
mission home in Scotland. But go through your areas, your companions, and your memories. We're excited to hear.
Oh, well, okay. So I was so excited about this because I don't know if you guys remember, maybe you guys were even the ones that did this. I don't know. A couple years ago, gosh, it's probably been 5 years now. We were kind of encouraged to go back through our mission journals and see if we could find people that we had taught and like reconnect with them. Do you remember that? I don't even know who started that.
Doesn't ring a bell for me at all.
No, sounds
Okay.
like a good idea, but hadn't heard of.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it. So but for 5 years I've been planning on doing it. So this was really good because I was like, I'm going to be in front of people and I'm going to have to talk about it. So I did actually go back through and read my journals, and that was just such a neat experience to just be able to um, kind of relive it, And then I haven't gone through my journals even once. Maybe like gone through and like referred back to things, or looked to see if I remember teaching that person or what. But I've
Hmm.
not read through my journals until now, and it's coming up on my 20 years of going into the MTC this summer.
Wow.
So that's a lot. I know, right? Like,
we're all
um,
getting there, Allison.
yeah, it's crazy. Um, yeah, so it was just so cool. I think, well, so to the MTC, kind of a funny thing about coming out from Germany was that I had to get my endowments out in Germany. And I
Mm.
didn't remember this at all. But so my endowment session was in German. and I had like the headset on. Anyway, it was funny to look back and be like, oh, I remember that was a different experience. Like it was good and it felt good, but it's just like that is so funny that that was my first experience, was going through in a different language. And then when I got into the mission, the MTC was great. There was like a small handful. I don't know. Preston is just small. I think every group probably was like pretty small, but I think we maybe had like I want to say like 30 to 60 maybe in
Oh,
there
wow.
somewhere. Not very much at all. Um, and so there was myself. There was maybe like 6 or 7 of us. I can't remember. The majority were elders. And then we had Sister Bird and Sister Bond and Sister Cahoon and I were the sisters that came out. Elder Nelson, Simon White, and I'm picturing people. Elder Austin. I'm thinking that that's his last name, Austin. Anyway, there were a bunch of elders that came out as well. Um, Elder Pattenden, they're just really great guys. And I don't remember too many like funny stories from the MTC, except for like I think there was that partition between the elders and sisters wing, and I
Yeah.
think I remember people like slipping notes or something, like nothing dodgy, but just like just because there was a partition only, and so I was like, look what we can do, like we can set stuff under the partition. So I remember that of all things, and like my brother, one of the people, the investigators, was a companion of my brother when he served a mission. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
kind of cool. Yeah, that he
That
was
is cool.
in Preston, and was able to like be one of my teachers there. Oh, okay. So now this
Cool.
is the big thing about the MTC. So because I came out when I did, it was like right at the end of Missionary Guide. However many 7 lessons or whatever there were.
Mhm.
And I remember getting the Missionary Guide packet in the MTC, and our MTC teacher being like, okay, he just totally, they'd just gotten this new direction that we weren't going to be using the Missionary Guide anymore, right? So he gives it to us and he's like, I want you to have this, but we're not really going to use it. Like instead it was just kind of open up your I just thought, open up your Missionary Guide and like try and make a lesson out of this. And I was just like, what? Like you want me just to like handwrite what's already printed here? Like it was like, I don't get it. Like what are you even saying to me? It was just like the weirdest moment for me. Like I was fully expecting that we were going to be like reading this verbatim, right? And doing like the flip chart things, and that's what everybody had told me about. And here he's like, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something completely different, but we don't really know what it is yet. So it's like this caveat of like, okay, we are supposed to be learning and using like our MTC time really well, but I don't have any idea what that's going to look like or how I'm supposed to do that. So that's kind of I feel like that was kind of the theme of my mission overall, was just kind of being in this guinea pig phase
Hmm.
of just like phasing out Missionary Guide, but it was before Preach My Gospel was released. And Preach My Gospel was released, I think we got it in like November, the November before I went home in January. So, I mean, it was really like, it was pretty much my full mission, of just kind of just winging it, really, like all of us just being, President Brains included, just like, okay, got new direction. Like, we're not going to do the certification anymore. We're going to do this certification, and just constantly like different iterations of direction, I guess, from the first presidency. And I think that was, uh, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, maybe we were a select group of, maybe all of us had ADHD where we're like, yeah, that sounds really great. Like, let's just switch it again. Let's just do it. Like, because it just was, I don't know. It would be funny to take a poll to see, during that time that I was serving, like how many of us did have ADHD? I'm sure the Lord prepped that somehow.
Were you
Anyway,
President Brand's first group?
yes, we were.
Okay.
I think so. I think we were President for, yes, because my MTC or my mission call had President Wilkinson on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I remember talking to President Wilkinson on the phone, I think, and then coming into President Breen's. Yeah. So that's funny. I forgot about that. So, so I served. Sister Gardner was my first companion, and she and I were in Edmonton. Sorry, we were in Edinburgh. Oh my gosh, I'm looking. Anyway, something's caught my eye over here. But we were in Edinburgh for my first area. We were in Morningside, actually for 6 months. I think I was there. Maybe it was 9.
Wow.
I can't remember when I moved everywhere, but it was a long time. I think she was there for 9 months, and I was there for 6 months. But she was leaving, so I was her last companion. She was my first companion, and she was just fabulous. And I had to say, again, caveat to any sisters that watch this. I've learned a lot about being a companion, from my mission, and I've learned a lot about how to not be a companion. And so just blanket apology across the board because, we just do a crappy job sometimes being companions when we're, you know, so let's just put that out there. I think I really gave her a hard time. Um, Unfortunately, she was so sweet, and I think I gave all my companions a hard time, to be honest. Maybe not at the end. I think I'd gotten a lot better at the end, but like, I don't know. I think I just had this feeling of like insecurity and just like really feeling like I needed to do things really well and just had to work really hard. And I just really didn't want to let anybody down. And so like the beginning of my journals are just like, I'm like, oh, poor Allison, you poor thing back then. Like you just thought you were crap. Like, oh man, Sister Gardner must hate me. And like, all these different things. I'm like, I didn't think I was that miserable for like my first, 6 months of, not that I was miserable with her, but just like how you just like really beat yourself up and you're like, if I just work harder, if I just do this, if I just do that. So I'm sure her coming off of her mission, like leaving her mission, she was probably like, stop it, like just settle down, like bring it right down here. So bless her heart. But we did have a lot of really great experiences. It just was amazing to me how many people from all over the world are in Scotland. Like just the variety of people, just teaching so many different faiths and so many different languages. Like I remember getting Book of Mormons of like so many different, like Tamil and like, Spanish or like Brazilian and just so many different languages that we'd have to order for the people that we're teaching because it wasn't, English wasn't their first language.
Mhm.
It was just such a neat experience to just have that. Even though I wasn't speaking another language, it was just this like, wow, I could not have had a more multicultural, experience than coming to Scotland. So that was amazing. I was trying to think like what silly or funny experiences that we had and that I actually recorded because, again, like I said, like the majority of it was like, I'm so tired and, I'll write more tomorrow. And then I'm sorry I didn't write, all those things. So anyway, were your journals like this too? Or is this just me?
Oh,
Okay.
definitely.
We all had those days where we were just like, there's no way I can keep my eyes open for 2 more seconds. I'd need to go to bed.
Yeah, and like things I feel like I really wish that I'd written about that. I was like, "What? That's all I said? Like that was a big deal." And that's like I didn't write anything about that. Like
Yeah,
that's
in the moment you don't think about that, but right? But in hindsight, you're like, that was kind of dumb. We all had
right.
those moments.
Yeah, like lots of those. So many of those. But I'll tell you what I did write down, and I can't remember the name of the sister that we had taken with us to go street contacting. Um, but I don't know if I was just super tired. I'm gonna say I was just super tired. But we were street contacting, and I had gotten into the habit of saying like, "Hiya, may I speak with you?" And like to approach somebody. And I had said to this guy, "Hiya, may I sleep with you?" And he was just, and we both like at the same time were like, "Did?" And they just like kind of tried to like play it off. And the sister that she was like a young adult, and I think she had some special needs. She might have been a little developmentally delayed. She just couldn't handle it. She just like broke down laughing as I'm trying to like maintain my composure and like, have you ever heard of the church or whatever? I don't remember how I took it from there, but it was just like irrecoverable. And so like, then it would continue on. And like the next person, I did the same thing. And it was just like, because I was so fixated on like, I can't believe I just said that.
It's one approach to get people to stop.
Oh, it was the worst. It was the worst. It was just like,
Oh my gosh.
that you're so tired when you're just like, I don't know where that came from. Like, that was just, anyway. So
that was the open your mouth promise in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Open your mouth and it'll be filled with the wrong thing to say.
Right. And this in front of this person that's going to tell everybody, like, she's going to just remember it forever. And that's probably the only thing that she will ever remember about me, is that I'm like a full-time missionary propositioning, myself on the street. But anyway, so we did teach. We just had some cool experiences. There are just so many neat people, and I think it just blows your mind how many good people there are. Just so many good people, and even if they're not, they don't progress or any of those types of things. Like, it was just such a blessing to be able to talk to people, and to forget yourself and just kind of put yourself out there. I remember really loving street contacting, believe it or not. Like, that was just in Edinburgh, that was my favorite thing to do, is just be out on the street and like just talking to whomever you could talk to. And it was just really cool. After we were in Morningside for 6 months, I ended up, let's see, so Sister Whitbeck came in after. So I guess at my 3-month mark, Sister Whitbeck, Marie Whitbeck, came in, and she and I finished out serving in Edinburgh. And that was my first Christmas. And it was just, a weird feeling, right? To be away from home on your first Christmas and first Thanksgiving, and just being like, this is not America, right? Like, this is just different. And we got these, we'd keep being asked if we were Jehovah's Witnesses. So we got these like sparkly like badges, brooches or something that like, your kids would wear, somewhere. We would wear that as we were street contacting, so people wouldn't ask us if we were Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's like, clearly not, because this is a Christmas tree.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't super effective, I'll be honest. I think I had a lot of people still think it was, they still ask, but let's see. Then I moved up to Aberdeen and was serving with Sister Samus. It was is that right? No, I started with Sister Jane's, Stephanie Janes, and she and I served in Aberdeen, like the ward Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And then like midway through, we were sent up to Bridge of Dawn. And I can't remember why. I said, some vague thing in my journal, but I don't know what the real reasons were. So, so we ended up going up to Bridge of Dawn, and she, I think, came out 6 weeks before me. So that was the first time, no, 6 weeks after me. So that was the first time that I had, was a senior companion. And that was really hard. Like, that was super hard for me, just to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And here I don't know the area. I'm not, I'm supposed to be senior, but I'm not familiar with the area at all. And I just didn't have a lot of confidence in general, and just everything was just, a struggle bus. I remember going up and like street contacting in Aberdeen, and just being like, this just feels different, and everybody's speaking. It sounds different than Edinburgh. And I think I don't remember if it was in Edinburgh or in Aberdeen, but one of the members kept saying Ken, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, who is, like all those things you're like, I don't want to ask, but should I know this?
You can.
Or like, yeah, you can. You fit like. I'm like, what are you even saying? So, so that was it was like a readjustment, right? Like, every area, it's just always a new experience, new accents. And, so when we went into Bridge of Dawn, it was funny, because like Aberdeen, it just kind of felt hard, not because of the ward, although, there was some ward, and stake stuff going on there. But just like it just was hard. And then we went, street contacting was hard. And then we moved to Bridger Dawn, and it was just like this, like, oh yeah, this is like where we're supposed to be. Like it was really neat because it just felt like a like, well, that's why, like, I mean, that's not the only reason why it was hard, but it just felt like felt like this is where we're supposed to be.
Hmm.
So we served there together. I think we were only like 3 weeks or something there in that ward or that area before she then got transferred out. And then I trained Sister Samus. And bless her heart, I was listening to Sister Samus and talking about Orkney. I don't remember that. I don't remember being like, Sister Samus, you're not going to go to Orkney. But until she said that. And then I was like, I think we did have a conversation about that. But but it's she was just on fire. Like she just was amazing. And, out of the NTC, just ready to go. And yeah, it was hard for me, to be honest, because it's just, I just feel like I had these amazing sisters and I just felt so inadequate, and I think that that's something that probably everybody struggles with to a certain extent. Um, but I just had a really hard time, and it wasn't not with Sister Samus herself, but just like as the position of, supposed to know something, when I'm like, I ramble an awful lot when I'm teaching, and I'm supposed to get us out of appointments on time. And I like am always late. I am never out of the appointments on time, and I'm never home to the flat on time. And like, I am fail, 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 like all of those things. Um, anyway, but we did work really hard. I have to say, despite all of my very many dumb, you know, just kind of forget the rules ever existed moments, we did work really hard, and had our hearts in the right place. Um, so I then Sister Samus went to Orkney, and then Sister McGowan came in, Jade McGowan, and that was, I think that was really hard for her. Well, I think I think all of my companions have had a hard time because, to be honest, like I don't know if there's just like this blossoming that happens like on your mission where you just kind of become comfortable with yourself, right? And you just become like, okay, this is who I am, and the Lord loves me this way, and I'm okay, with all my weaknesses and all those things. It probably took me until Sister McGowan to be like okay with like being myself. And just I think I just felt like I was yeah, I was afraid that people wouldn't like me, for being having opinions about things. And so I was always just very sweet and very nice. And not that I don't know. It would be really interesting to watch me, but I think it'd be really painful too to be like, oh, like just to see yourself in your start of your mission.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she said to me once, she was like, I just don't feel like I know you at all. And maybe that's not, I'm paraphrasing because I don't know how exactly she said it, but that's what came across to me. And I just was like cut to the quick because I felt like, oh man, this is my whatever. I don't know how many companion this is, fifth or something companion. And um and man, like this has been a perpetual thing in all of my companionships where they just feel like they don't know me very well. And I've been serving with them for months, 24/7. It's not like we're, seeing each other after church or something. Um, and I had this like really pivotal moment where I was like, I need to like loosen up. I need to like be okay making mistakes, and I need to be okay like being myself and like just, you know, saying I'm tired or like just really making connections with my companions. And that changed the rest of my mission. Like I said, it's not like we were doing anything wrong, not majorly wrong, like little, stupid things, but we weren't like, hanging out with the elders or something like that on the side or anything. Um, but but it was just this complete difference from like the hardworking that I was doing before to like the loving and the connecting and still working hard, but it was like so much more efficient and effective. And then like the rest of my mission, I served with Sister Cahoon in Kilmarnock, Julie Cahoon, and then Sister Sharon Jones, um, and Sister Allie Malin. And those three I feel like were a very different feel than my initial set of companions. Because I had changed so much, not that I, there were still things that were hard, but I just feel like I felt my mission experience was just drastically different, and it just was a testimony to me that the Lord loves you no matter what. You're there raw and like imperfect, and you're just trying. And that's exactly what he needs you to do. And it's totally okay that whatever, any of the things, it's totally okay. Um, and yeah, that's just changed my life forever, I think. Sorry, not to get emotional, but like, yeah.
That's
If,
great.
yeah, if there's anything about my mission, that's like the number one thing. So, um, but I think some of the funny things that happen, sometimes I think as sisters, we're just so dense sometimes about like, and elders too, like we just don't know if somebody's actually really interested or if they're like, think you're cute, or things like that. So there are a few of those things where, probably members had to step in and be like, you need to drop that guy, or whatever. And yeah, there's just lots of things like that where there are some close calls where I remember I was chatting with Sister Cahoon in Kilmarnock, and we just had this scary experience where we tapped into this guy, and yeah, again, stupid. Don't do this, right? Like these are the things you tell missionaries not to do, or you just don't even tell the story. But we weren't supposed to go in and teach somebody, right? We broke that rule all the time. Sorry, President Brains. Like if he ever sees this, like totally, I learned my lesson from this experience. So we went in and we're teaching him a first discussion or something they're trying to. And he was so creepy, like so creepy. Like I'm pretty sure I may be exaggerating, but I don't, Sister Cahoon gets on here and she remembers this. You can have her verify. I'm pretty sure he locked the door, like when we came inside, and he had like all this videography equipment everywhere. And he just asked like the most inappropriate questions, all kinds of sleazy questions. And I had like this feeling of like, if we do not leave, and Sister Cahoon did too, like if we do not leave this apartment right now, we will not leave this apartment. Like we have to get out of here.
Yeesh.
And so, yeah, so we ended up being like, you know what, we're actually really late. Like, can we come back and finish our appointment some other time? And I think he just was like, oh, okay, they're going to come back. And he, it kind of caught him off guard. And we were like, never again. And it like was one of those experiences where you just pray and pray for, I don't know how long we prayed after, just like to get like heebie-jeebies, like, oh. So there are a couple of those times when we're just like, no, that was a bad time to, to not pay attention to the white handbook or whatever. So we had those types of things, but then we also had, so many cool experiences, where you're just in the right place and you just get to talk to somebody and it's just so edifying and you have that connection. Those are treasure. Um, sorry. So yeah, there were lots of cool things like that. We did have a couple by the time I was serving with Sister Jones. So Sister Jones is a senior sister, and I think Sister Bird. So I don't know if I should share this, but I'm pretty sure that the senior sisters, when they served together, did not get along. And so I think President Breens was like, let's stop doing that and let's start pairing them with younger sisters. And I don't know if this was the case for Sister Jones, but man, she was amazing. She was so much fun. And I wrote in my journal, like, she just feels like my grandma. Like we just get along so well. And I just, it's just awesome. But I remember this one time we were serving together and so I have my glasses, right? And I took off my glasses to go to sleep, obviously. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I like couldn't see very clearly, but I was pretty sure Sister Jones was like standing over me, like over by the door. And I was like, Sister Jones, like, what are you doing? And then I looked over and she was asleep in the bed. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, so I just like pulled the covers up and like went back to sleep. It's like, please don't leave, like, please let that. And then like the next morning I woke up and like, it was like that we had I don't know, like New Era ads or something on the door, but it looked like a body because it was like, like the smaller one was up here, and then it was like white because the moonlight was hitting and I was like, like, and I told Sister Jones, and she's like, okay, you're just, I don't know what, but, um,
Sister
yeah,
Jones was in my MTC group.
was she?
She was pretty funny.
Yeah, she's so funny. She was awesome. And she put up with, I mean, it was me and Sister Malin together for a while and Sister Jones. We did a trio in Livingston, and it was just so much fun. Like, it really was so much fun. We did this Armor of God, an Armor of God like skating. We did like a not rollerblading, skateboarding with like knee pads and stuff for Armor of God. And it just was like, at the beginning of my mission, I've been like, I don't think that that's like kosher. Like, I don't think we're supposed to be doing things like this. But, by the end of my mission, I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it. Like, let's invite all the youth and we'll do this thing. And they just had such great ideas. And yeah, it was just awesome to serve with them, both of them. Trying to think if there are any other, I mean, there's lots of little things, the people that you teach. We had an experience in Edinburgh where, it was one of those where it's like the last door of the last hour of the day. And, but he literally came out, he was like the very bottom door of the flat. And I think I was serving with Sister Sam. No, that was Edinburgh. So it was Sister Whitbeck, maybe. And he answered the door and he was like, I was just trying to call you. And we're like, oh, okay, like, who's this guy, but sure enough, like, he had written on his palm, like the name of the spy law building or something like that. And he said that he had been, trying to call the church there and nobody had answered. And he was just really upset and had, he had been taught by the missionaries previous to us. And so we taught him for a little while, but he had a lot of struggles. Like, he was an alcoholic, and that was one of those where after a little while, one of the members was like, I think, you need to pass him on to an elder or set of elders, or you need to, drop him. So I don't know what came of him, but it was one of those moments where it's like, it works, like praying about what street you're going to go to, and all those things. Maybe it was just for that reason, like, that the Lord just wanted us to know, like, hey, I'm here with you. Like, I really am. I'm in it with you. But that was really cool. So, yeah, I think the overall takeaway from my mission is just, a cool thing, I should say, is that at one point I read in my journal that President Breen's, I was really concerned about my dad because he's never been active, and you hear those those missionary stories of like being promised to, have your family is going to be all fully active and things. So I talked to President Breen's about it, and he'd given me a blessing, um, and it talked about my dad, but that he would be touched and things like that. Um, but one of the things that he had said was that, um, if I'd done the work and was faithful and things, that I would have, like 10 baptisms or something like that on my mission, which I think was like the mission goal or something, was all of us to, at the time, was to have 10. So I don't think it was necessarily directed to me. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Not that it wasn't directed to me, but like, I don't think it was like, that one's going to have 10. But it was just like, a promise that if we're faithful, that we can do what the Lord has asked us to do, or promised us, I should say. And I didn't, I didn't have 10 baptisms. And in fact, some of the people that got baptized, it was one of those experiences where it's like, they probably were actually more interested in the elders, or, not that that was the only reason, but just kind of like, you felt like they should have been taught longer, they should have been more solid, done more, could have probably waited a little bit before we had them get baptized. But as I was reading through my journal, it was so cool because I would just like reference people that in previous areas that I got to be a part of teaching, that they then ended up getting baptized. It wasn't me, that baptized them. or I mean, it wasn't me anyway, but it wasn't. They weren't the people that I had been. I wasn't their set of mission. But I counted them up, and there were actually like 9. And then one of them we were teaching passed away. So I'm counting that as the 10th. So because they passed away while I was on my mission, when we were actively teaching them. And it was just cool to think like, that's a testament to me that like none of us has to do it all. Like in our missions, like there was that Susan Fuller. Is that what it was called? Like there was some talk of Susan Fuller that she came into the areas and just like changed the ward and was amazing missionary. And there was just like this almost like I think that's what missionary work is supposed to be. Like we're supposed to be this epic that like we completely change the world around in our little sphere of our area. And that's just unattainable, for, I don't know, there probably are people that do that, but like, that's unattainable, it's unrealistic to think that we're all going to be these, um, uh, I might be sacrilegious here and showing lack of faith, but my point is that I don't think that that's what the Lord is asking us to do. Like he's asking us just to thrust in our sickle with our might, and he will make the harvest come. And that was just the cool thing, is to see, like, I didn't see this happen. I didn't see the 10 until 20 years later. Like, that's when I looked back and I was like, like it really happened. Like 20 people or 10 people that I knew have been baptized, on my mission. And maybe more, like maybe we don't know how many people of the people we taught 20 years ago, we don't know their stories and how it unfolded.
Yeah.
So it was just a really neat experience to feel like validated, I guess, that all those times when I felt like I just didn't work hard enough, or I just didn't, all those times I was late to my appointments or late from my appointments, it just felt like, no, I think that was okay. You were still trying, you were repenting and trying to do good, but the Lord took care of it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that all missionaries, when I left my mission, I thought all missionaries were supposed to be like Hammond, just baptize the whole nation. Or
Right.
Farley P. Pratt in Scotland before we got there,
Yeah.
But
And I
that's
think
not the
it's
way
like,
it is.
no, and times and seasons, like it's just, it's so different. Being in Parley P. Pratt's time, like where you're there with a village of people that all know each other and trust each other, and you teach one of them and they all talk about it and they all want it, versus like this individual person that's distracted constantly by social media and the internet. And if you can get that one person, hopefully that person will stick. Maybe they'll pass it, to some other people. It's just, I think that I shouldn't say that the degree of difficulty is higher, but I think that it's just very different. And we do what we can, and the Lord's going to have to do the rest of it. We just can't, we can't control all of the things, and
Yeah.
and that was really hard for me, I think. I did want to share one. Speaking of Elder Pattenden from my MTC group, so one sister that we did end up getting baptized, or that ended up getting baptized when we were there, her name was Margaret in Livingston, and I'm pretty sure it was Livingston. So she was just a funny. She's maybe I don't know, 24, 25, and was living in council housing because I think she had a little bit of brain damage. So she's on her own, and kind of living off of the dole, and we taught her, and she was just had such childlike everything. I mean, she was a grown up and she was competent, but like we would teach her and be like, she's not holding on to any of this information, like in one ear, out the other. But she really wanted us to keep teaching her. And then we would go and have a lesson, and she'd be like, she would remember, like she would make all the dots connect, and she would remember all these things, and she would just be super excited about it. And so it was kind of like this everlasting, like, I don't know, she wants to get baptized. Do we baptize her? Do we not? Like, she's kind of, she probably doesn't really need, I don't know. We don't know the severity of her, of her mental handicap, but she wants to get baptized. So we ended up, I don't remember if we talked to President Brains or what, but we talked to the district leaders and the zone leaders. And I can't remember if Elder Pattenden was our zone leader at the time, but, or district leader, but he came and did an interview with her. And And again, it was kind of one of those like, I don't know, we had to talk about it, talk with the mission leader and things. And eventually it was like, okay, yeah, she wants to get baptized, she knows all the things that she needs to know. So we'll let her, she should be able to make that choice. So he goes to like fill out the paperwork or something, and she doesn't remember, her parents had passed away. She does not remember like their date of birth or anything like that. And we're like, oh no, like, she doesn't have whatever is required to like fill this out to be baptized. And then she like starts to giggle, and she like pulls up her sleeve, and she has like tattooed on her arm like, her parents like name and like date of birth, and are like, there you go, Margaret, like good job. I have this picture in my journal of my scrapbook of like Elder Patton and Margaret, like she's got her bicep and her heart tattoo right here, and it was just one of those things where it's like, just, those are precious memories that like, I didn't write about it in my journal, but I remember it like, why didn't I write about that? But anyway, it was just really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't have any other real interesting stories, but
I have a question for you, Allison.
sure.
So I think I know why Chris Patton was President Vrain's favorite when I came into the mission. Now that I know that he was in your group, so tell us about your favorite memories of President and Sister Vrain's that you can recall.
Well, they're just characters, aren't they? Like, they're so fun. I think, well, one of the things I think that about Sister Brains, she just was so sweet to the mission, to the sisters anyway. I mean, maybe it's different experience when you're the elders. Maybe she's harder on you, but we had a sister missionary conference, and she just wanted to make sure that we were, that we knew how to take care of ourselves and like cook things. And she made like a packet of like ready, meals, recipes, and things like that for us to make at home. And um, now being a mom and looking back on it, it was like the most basic stuff that you could possibly cook. And so it's just funny to think about Sister Breen's like, okay, I'm really not sure that anybody's gonna like, what she must have thought of our abilities. And it's so true though, because like, I don't know if you guys were the same, but I mean, like, we would eat chocolate and like baguettes and cheese. Like, that's what we would eat for like our lunches, and on the street somewhere. And that was like my 4-course meal or whatever, like my food group plate. So bless her heart. Like, I can't even imagine being a mission president's wife and just being like, you're all going to have diabetes by the time you're, 30 or whatever. But she was just awesome. I do remember once, so my hair is kind of wavy, and I remember going to a zone conference and had like too much gel in my hair. And so it looked wet. And I remember her saying in front of everybody, like, Sister Laird, did you just get out of the shower? And I was just like mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, like, could I ever like I was so self-conscious about it. In fact, I wouldn't wear my hair curly for the longest time after that, because I was just like, I looks like I'm out of the shower. That's weird. But she just was, just super sweet. President Breen's, he just had such a, I guess I didn't spend as much time with President Rains as I did with Sister Rains. No, obviously, because he's a man, but he just was always kind. And I remember talking to him a couple times just about like just all those feelings of insecurity, and him just being like, Sister Laird, you're fine. And I remember, funnily enough, when I was getting ready to go home, him saying like, you were just so much more confident. Like, you just have gotten so much more confident. And I was really resentful of that. Like, not to his face, of course, but like, I was just like, what? Like, he didn't think I was confident before, but now like reading my journals, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, oh, like, I just can't even, I don't even want to think about that first 9 months person. So it's just funny just to see how they must witness so many like growth, from start to finish, and the drama. I'm sure there's got to be so much drama, and they just handled it so well. Like, I never got a feeling that there was like that he was like, upset with the mission. Like, he wasn't ever like doom and gloom, like we're, anything like that. It was just so loving and rolling with the punches. Like, really, like, talking about rolling with the punches. Like, I mean, he was right there learning with all of us, and came into as a new mission president with like everything changing, like getting new direction every however often, and then preach my gospel and being like, okay, like, I don't know how we're doing this. I really don't know. Just got out of the pilot program, and, let's go. That would have just been really difficult to kind of have just almost like two different missions, really, like mission president over, just very different um, processes, going from like, let's teach this verbatim to like, I don't know, guys, wing it, like, not wing it, but like, teach by the Spirit. And now that's so commonplace and it's so intuitive to us all, I think. But, at that time, it's just kind of, I mean, he'd grown up with that, right? Like, he'd grown up with like the scripting and like the mission manuals and all of the church manuals being like, here's the question, here's the answer. And just what a epic, overhaul that would have been for both of them, I'm sure. And anyway,
Yeah.
so
That's really
yeah,
true, because that hadn't changed probably since our parents were serving missions. I mean, it had been a long time since there was any sort of adjustment to how the processes, like you said, of a mission and how missionaries functioned had changed in such a way. So, and
yeah,
we all know too that we were kind of the era after the Raising the Bar talk. I think it was Elder Ballard that gave that talk, and
hmm,
talking about how we had to be at a different level of spirituality to serve a mission in this new era that was something that they hadn't even talked about yet.
yeah,
So it's a great point.
yeah. And even too, like, I like nobody had cell phones before I went on my mission. Like,
Mhm.
that was not a thing. And that was my first cell phone, was on my mission. And I remember being like on the bus, and there were like girls that were, like 12 or something with phones. And I was like, "Ugh, like, these girls with these phones." And then I came home and like my sisters have phones, and I was like, "Mom, like, what are you doing giving me?" Anyway, so it's just so funny, like, to yeah, just to see all those things kind of unfolding. And now the missionaries have, laptops, and everything is on Zoom and digital, and it's just such a different, man, it's just been like hyperdrive. Like, the last 20 years have been just revolutionary in so many ways. And it's kind of freaky to think that that's what our kids are going to be like. They're going to be in like the warp zone, like, just throw them in there. I don't know what it's going to look like, but
Yeah, it is
sink or
pretty
swim.
wild.
They're going to
Yeah.
serve full-time missions from their bedrooms in foreign countries.
I To be honest, like, I feel like sometimes that's, like, when we drop meals off to the elders, sometimes like they're having a lesson, like, from their flat. And why not? But
Yeah,
um yeah, it's just a different world, right? So different. But
it has changed a lot in the last 20 years, like you said. Pretty crazy.
yeah, it's been great. But I think my final thought about the Marines is just, um yeah, I think that they really set the tone of just love. I didn't know President Wilkinson, but everybody that I talked to that had been, with both presidents, they just really would talk about, and no disrespect to President Wilkinson, but um, I think that there were a lot of issues in the mission before I came in, where lots of missionaries got sent home, and he just kind of cleaned house. And they would say, he's kind of like the Old Testament, and President Breen's coming in as like the New Testament, the higher law of like, hey, like, I'm not going to be checking up on every little thing you do. You know what you're supposed to be doing, and if you aren't going to do it, you should be here. Like, or just really, that feeling of like trust, and like, this is what we're about. Like, I have confidence in you, and just, yeah, just get it. Let's just get it done. For the Lord. And I feel like that's really carried over into like the rest of my life, honestly. It's that feeling of like, it's okay. Like, the Lord's got it. I'll just participate as much as I can and do the best that I can. And he's got it, you know? So I can thank at least partially the Marines for that.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Allison, it's been really wonderful catching up with you and having you share your experience in Scotland. We've only talked to a couple of your companions so far, so those that we haven't spoken to yet, I can tell you that none of your other companions are on our future schedule at this point in time. So if you can help us connect those sisters with us, we would love to
Yeah.
have them. Beyond that, is there any other people from the mission that you haven't heard from or that you haven't been on the podcast yet that you'd like to call out tonight and say that they need to be on here in the future with us?
Oh man, just everybody, right? Like it's so fun to catch up and hear all of the stories and like just everything, like things you forget and you're like, oh yeah, like that was awkward, you know, like just so many things. Kilts, like just that's awkward. Like let's just I don't know. My daughter's like, Mom, did you know that the guys don't wear underwear under their kilts? And I was like, yeah, I know. They're just like, what? So anyway, no, I think everything it's just so good to be able to think about it again. And I should say my husband and I did get to go back. We went back in 2019, just before COVID.
Wow.
Is that right? Yeah, I think it was 2019. And it's just like we got to go back up on Pratt's Hill, and I was just like gushing to him, like, "This is why this is so cool." Blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh! I have to tell you this one last thing. Sorry about that. So my husband and I went and stayed in an Airbnb that was just like a very typical missionary flat, right? Like it's just somebody's house. And this is the first night that we were in the UK at all. I'm pretty sure, for sure, the first night that we were in Scotland. And I just been telling him, you know, we'd driven up there, I was telling him about my mission and all these different things, and driving past stuff and like, oh, this is where this was. And that night we just got into the flat and we just looked around, and you know how they're like a different layout, like they've got the bedrooms kind of towards the front, and then you walk down the hallway and then there's like the living room and the kitchen back here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it was that it was just very different setup than the United States, you know, typical layout of things, or if it was just that we'd been talking about it. But I had this nightmare that first night. I was like, oh, there's a man in my bed. Like I was just like, oh. I was like mortified, and like in the middle of my dream I was like, no, oh, the president is gonna find out. Oh my gosh, like how do I it was like the worst feeling ever. And then you know I woke up and I was like, oh no, it's my husband, I'm okay, like I'm not on a mission anymore, it's okay. But it was just like it was just one of those awesome, like never would have I couldn't have paid money for that experience, like to just you know just to feel immersed and like afraid that I was breaking a mission rule. And I still like, I think Sister Sam said this, like, I still have dreams about like being on my mission or like being in the NTC and being like, but I have children. Like, how am I in the mid? Like, anyway, it's just like little things like that are so funny. It just never goes away, right? Like it's just always part of who you are. So sweet stuff.
Yeah,
Missions are the
absolutely.
best.
Yep.
Yeah. So everybody, to answer your question, everybody.
Great answer.
All right. You heard it. Everybody's listening. Get in line. It's time to come on the podcast.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Allison, we really appreciate you again. Thank you so much for coming on. And this has been great. We really have enjoyed it. And your stories were awesome. So don't second guess yourself. We enjoyed every minute of it. So really thank you again for coming on.
Sure.
And know that we love you. We're so grateful that you were one of our sisters in the Scotland Edinburgh Mission. And we'll look forward to many more interactions in the future. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Thanks for doing this. Such a great idea.
Oh,
you bet.
It's truly our pleasure. We've really enjoyed it just as much as everybody else. So we will say goodnight. Thanks, Allison. Love you.
Hey, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.